Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to rise while others remain stuck? It's not because of luck. It's not because of talent. And it's certainly not because the world is fair. Success is not a mystery. It's a set of habits. I'll say that again. Success is not a mystery. It's a set of habits. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be rich. But you do have to do things differently. You see, years ago, I was broke. Not just financially, mentally, emotionally, directionless. But then something shifted. I stopped blaming. I stopped waiting. And I started building. One small habit at a time. And over the years, those small disciplines turned into massive results. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 10 habits that changed my life. The very same habits that turned failure into focus, confusion into clarity, and doubt into discipline. But I'll warn you, this is not motivation for the moment. This is transformation for a lifetime. So if you're ready to take charge, if you're tired of excuses, and if you're serious, really serious, about living a life of purpose, progress, and power, then keep listening. Because success isn't something you chase, it's something you create. And it starts with these 10 habits. Let's begin. I learned to show up early. Every day. Let me tell you something that changed everything for me. I used to drift. I used to delay. I used to wait until life forced me to move. But then I learned a small truth that made a big difference. Success starts when you start showing up early, every single day. Not just early to meetings. Not just early to appointments. I mean showing up early for your life. Showing up for your goals. Showing up for your future before the world asks anything of you. You see, when I was younger, I thought being on time was enough. I thought if I just arrived, somehow life would hand me the results. But life doesn't reward the average. Life rewards the intentional. It rewards the prepared. And when you show up early, you're sending a message, not to others, but to yourself. You're saying, I'm ready. I'm disciplined. I'm here with purpose. And that, my friend, is where the shift begins. When I started showing up early, I began to notice things. I noticed how the early hours were quiet, peaceful, free from distraction. I had time to think, to prepare, to create, to plan. While the world slept, I was sharpening my mind. While others rushed, I was moving with clarity. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was leading, and no one told me to do it. That's the secret. I made it a standard for myself. Because the moment you start showing up early without being told, you begin building something called character. Let me be clear. Waking up early doesn't guarantee success, but it does something even better. It puts you in position. It gives you the edge, and that edge over time becomes your advantage. Discipline is built in the dark, not under the spotlight. It's built in those early moments when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, but you're still doing the work. And that's what changed me. No more waiting for motivation. I traded motivation for momentum, and momentum comes from showing up, even when you don't feel like it. Now here's what I want you to do. Set your alarm 30 minutes earlier than usual. Not tomorrow, tonight. And when that alarm goes off, don't snooze it. Don't reason with it. Don't negotiate with your old habits. Get up, sit up, and use that time to think, to read, to write, to plan your day, to get a head start on becoming the person you're capable of being. Because when you show up early, you're not just ahead of the clock. You're ahead of your past. You're breaking the cycle. You're sending a signal. You're saying to the universe, I'm ready now. And trust me, life has a way of meeting you halfway when it sees you're serious. So let this be your new habit. Not for a week, not for a month. Make it a way of living. Because once you master your morning, you start mastering your life. Now let's move to the next habit, because this was only the beginning. I read what successful people read. One of the most important lessons I ever learned is this. You can't grow beyond what you feed your mind. Let me say that again, because it might just change your life. You can't grow beyond what you feed your mind. You want to earn more? You have to learn more. You want to do better? You've got to think better. And thinking better starts with reading what successful people read. Now here's a truth that's easy to miss. Rich people have big libraries. Poor people have big TVs. And I'm not just talking about financial wealth. I'm talking about richness of thought, depth of wisdom, power of perspective. You see, when I was young, I didn't read much. I thought books were for school. I thought learning ended with graduation. But then I met a mentor who said, Jim, if you want to change your life, you have to start changing the content of your mind. That sentence hit me like a hammer, because I looked at my habits. and I realized I was consuming garbage. TV, gossip, distractions, noise, and I expected to be focused, to be wise, to be successful. It doesn't work that way. Input determines output. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. So I made a decision that changed everything. I started reading every day. 10 pages, 20 minutes. Books on personal development. Books on business. Books on leadership. Books that challenged me. Books that inspired me. Books that forced me to grow. And the more I read, the more I began to change. Not just what I knew, but how I thought. Not just what I believed, but what I expected of myself. Reading successful material is like having a personal conversation with greatness. The author may be long gone, but their wisdom lives on in the words. And every time you open that book, you bring them back to life. You get to borrow their decades of experience in just a few quiet hours. Now let me be honest with you. Reading isn't always exciting. It takes discipline. It takes focus. But the rewards, unmatched. Because the mind, once expanded by new knowledge, never returns to its original size. So here's your challenge. If you want to think like a millionaire, read what millionaires read. If you want to lead people, read what leaders read. If you want to change your future, start with your bookshelf. Start small, 10 pages a day. 1 book a month. In a year, that's 12 new ways of thinking. And 12 steps closer to the life you really want. I'll leave you with this. Don't just read for information. Read for transformation. Because the person you become depends on the thoughts you allow in. Let reading become your daily ritual. Let learning become your identity. And you'll wake up one day, not just smarter, but stronger, bolder, and more prepared than you ever thought possible. Now let's move forward, because we've still got more habits to build. I guarded my circle like my future depended on it. Because it did. Let me give you a simple truth. One that could change your entire life. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now that may sound like a clever quote, but I promise you, it's a law of life. When I started paying attention to my surroundings, I realized something disturbing. I was spending time with people who didn't challenge me, didn't grow me, didn't inspire me, and worst of all, they didn't believe in anything bigger than comfort. That was the moment I made a decision. I had to change my circle because my future depended on it. If you hang around complainers, you'll complain. If you walk with quitters, you'll start to quit. If you stay close to small thinkers, your vision will shrink. But if you surround yourself with dreamers, with builders, with people who sharpen you like iron, you'll start to rise. Because association is a mirror. It reflects back to you who you are becoming. Let me be real with you. This isn't easy. Sometimes the people holding you back are close. Sometimes they're friends. Sometimes family. Sometimes people you've known for years. But here's what you must understand. Loyalty to your past should never come at the cost of your future. That doesn't mean you stop loving people, but it does mean you stop letting the wrong voices have the loudest influence. You don't have to cut people out of your life, but you do have to limit your exposure. Protect your energy. Protect your mindset. Protect your momentum, because every conversation either plants seeds or pulls up roots. So how do you guard your circle? Be intentional. Choose growth-minded people. Seek mentors, not just friends. Be around those who talk about ideas, not just people. Those who challenge your comfort, not feed it. Let me give you a rule. If you're always the smartest, most disciplined, most focused person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You want to rise? Get around people who stretch you, who think bigger, who make you slightly uncomfortable, in the best way possible. I'll tell you this, when I upgraded my circle, my standards followed. And when my standards changed, my life followed. Because success is not just about effort, it's about environment. So here's what I want you to do. Take inventory. Write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Ask yourself, do they lift me or limit me? Do they push me or pacify me? Do they inspire progress or invite procrastination? And then decide, not from emotion, but from vision. Guard your circle, because the right circle will feed your fire. The wrong one will drown your dreams. Be wise with your access, because your future depends on who's speaking into your present. Let's keep going. This journey isn't over yet. The next habit will take us even deeper. I learned to talk to myself better. Let me ask you a question. If someone talked to you the way you talk to yourself, would you consider them a friend or an enemy? Think about that. Because I'll tell you something most people never realize. Your internal dialogue becomes your external destiny. Before I ever built a better life, I had to build a better voice inside my head. And that started when I learned to talk to myself, not like a failure, but like a future champion. Now don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about wishful thinking. I'm not talking about fake positivity. I'm talking about intentional, disciplined, powerful self-talk. Because the person you hear from the most is you. And if you don't train that voice, it'll tear you down instead of lifting you up. When I was broke and struggling, it wasn't just money I lacked. It was belief. I had this running script in my mind. You're not good enough. You're too late. You'll never catch up. That voice was louder than any applause, stronger than any advice. And the worst part, I thought it was telling the truth. But it wasn't truth, it was training. Bad mental habits I had rehearsed for years. So I did something radical. I decided to rewrite the script. I started talking to myself like someone I believed in. Not someone who was perfect, but someone who was willing. I said, I may not be there yet, but I'm on my way. I've got work to do, but I've got the heart to do it. I'm not stuck, I'm learning. And over time, something amazing happened. My words started changing my thoughts. My thoughts changed my actions, and my actions changed my life. You see, the way you talk to yourself in private, it echoes in your public results. If you call yourself lazy long enough, you'll stop trying. If you call yourself a loser, you'll quit when it gets tough. But if you start calling yourself disciplined, focused, capable, you'll start rising to match that identity. What you say to yourself matters. Every word is a seed. Speak doubt, and you'll grow hesitation. Speak truth, and you'll grow power. So here's what I want you to do. Catch the voice. Listen to how you speak to yourself throughout the day. When you hear something negative, stop and correct it. Replace it with something true, something strong, something future-focused. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be intentional. Tell yourself, I am worthy of growth. I am building the habits of success. I don't have to be the best. I just have to be better than I was yesterday. Because the most important words in your life aren't the ones others say about you. They're the ones you whisper to yourself in the quiet moments. So learn to talk to yourself better. Not with arrogance, but with assurance. Not with ego, but with expectation. Because if you want to change your world, start by changing your words. Let's move forward. The next habit is one of the most powerful of all. I took full responsibility for everything. There was a moment in my life, a quiet, painful, honest moment, when I looked in the mirror and said something I had never said before. Jim, this is your fault. Not the economy, not my boss, not my parents, not bad luck. It's you. And that one moment changed everything. You see, for a long time I blamed my circumstances. I blamed the past. I blamed the system. But blaming is like rocking in a chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't take you anywhere. And here's the truth that most people never want to admit. Nothing changes until you take full responsibility. Now don't get me wrong. Some things that happened to you weren't your choice. But how you respond, that's all you. What you build from it, that's on you. Where you go from here, that's your move. When I finally took full responsibility, not just for the good things, but for the hard things, I took my power back. Because as long as I kept blaming others, I was giving them control. But the moment I said, this is on me, I became the author again. I picked up the pen. I started rewriting my life. Let me be clear. Responsibility doesn't mean guilt. It means ownership. It means saying, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm going to change that. I've made some bad decisions, but I'm not going to repeat them. I've wasted time, but I refuse to waste another minute. That mindset, that shift, that's where growth lives. You want a better life? Then take full responsibility for the one you're living now. No more waiting for the perfect situation. No more waiting for someone to rescue you. Because guess what? No one is coming. That may sound harsh, but it's true. And it's also empowering. You're not a victim. You're not helpless. You're not stuck, unless you choose to be. The moment you stop pointing fingers and start building your foundation, your life will begin to change. You'll stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? What can I do now? And that question opens doors. So here's your challenge. Look at every area of your life, your finances, your health, your habits, your relationships, and ask, where have I been waiting? Where have I been blaming? And most importantly, what can I do about it? Then take the smallest step forward, not because someone told you to, not because you feel like it, but because you've decided that you are responsible for your life. And let me tell you something. When you embrace that level of responsibility, you become unstoppable. You stop hoping for a better life, and you start creating one. Now let's keep moving. The next habit will challenge your patience, but it will multiply your results. I made time my partner, not my problem. Let me tell you something about time. Time is not the problem. How you use it, that's the problem. You ever hear someone say, "I just don't have the time"? I used to say that too. Until one day I realized it wasn't a time issue. It was a priority issue. You see, every one of us gets the same 24 hours. The billionaire, the athlete, the artist, the mother, the student, the dreamer. Same hours, different results. So what makes the difference? It's not how much time you have. It's how you treat it. At some point, I stopped looking at time like an enemy. You know, that constant reminder that I was behind. And I started treating time like a partner. A powerful partner. One that, if respected, would work for me, instead of against me. Let me ask you this. What if time isn't chasing you? What if time is waiting on you to wake up, to take charge, to do something intentional? When I changed my relationship with time, my results changed. I started planning my days, not just letting them happen to me. I scheduled my learning. I blocked time for thinking. I even gave myself time to rest on purpose, not by accident. I didn't leave my goals to chance anymore. I put them on the calendar, because what gets scheduled, gets done. You've got to be ruthless with your time, not because you're too busy, but because your vision is too valuable. Here's what I learned. You can waste time, or you can invest it. You can drift through the day, or you can direct it. You can let life dictate your schedule, or you can design your day with intention. So how do you make time your partner? You treat every hour like it matters, because it does. You stop living in reaction, and you start living in creation. Wake up early. Decide your top 3 priorities for the day. Protect your focus like it's gold, because it is. Let me be clear. You don't need more time. You need better choices in the time you already have. I learned to say no to distractions, to drama, to anything that didn't align with where I was going, because every yes is a trade, and I stopped trading time for things that didn't move me forward. You want a better life? Then build a better schedule, not a busier one, a smarter one. So here's your challenge. Tonight, look at tomorrow. Ask yourself, what matters most? Then put it on the calendar. Not at the end of the day, at the beginning. Because if it's important, it deserves space. And if it's not on the calendar, it's not real. You can master time, or be mastered by it. The choice is always yours. So make time your partner, and watch how far you go. One powerful, intentional hour at a time. Let's keep going. Because the next habit, it's the one that makes all the others work. I developed a work ethic that didn't need supervision. Let me give you a principle that will serve you for the rest of your life. The best kind of discipline is self-discipline. You see, the turning point in my life didn't come when someone pushed me. It came when I started pushing myself. I stopped working only when someone was watching. I stopped doing just enough to get by. I stopped waiting for the deadline to get serious. And I started showing up differently. I made a decision. I would build a work ethic that didn't need supervision. No boss, no audience, no applause. Just me, my standards, and the future I was building. Because here's the truth. If you need someone to remind you to show up, if you need someone to push you to stay consistent, if you need motivation from the outside, then your results will always be temporary. But when you develop that inner standard, that personal commitment, that quiet fire that says, I work this way because that's who I am, that's when everything starts to change. Let me say this clearly. How you work when no one is watching reveals how far you'll go when everyone is. Success doesn't just ask what you do, it asks how you do it. I started treating every project, big or small, with care. I put excellence into the details. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. And you know what happened? Opportunities showed up. People took notice. Doors opened. But even if they hadn't, I still would have done the work, because I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it to become the kind of person I could be proud of. Here's something I want you to remember. Effort is never wasted. Even if no one sees it, you do. And what you build in the dark will one day shine in the light. So how do you develop that kind of work ethic? You stop relying on feeling. You start relying on standards. You build a system. You track your progress. You set goals that stretch you. And you get honest about your habits. No more hiding. No more excuses. No more waiting for perfect conditions. Because perfect doesn't exist. But progress, that's available every single day, if you show up for it. So here's your challenge. Pick one task today. Do it with excellence. Even if no one will ever know. Be early. Be focused. Be proud of your work. And then do it again tomorrow. And again the next day, until self-discipline becomes your signature. Because in the end, success doesn't belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most consistent, the most committed, the most responsible. Be the person who doesn't need supervision. Be the one who brings excellence. Every time. Every place. No matter what. And I promise you, you'll never need to chase success. Because it will start chasing you. Let's keep going. The next habit is about patience, power, and one of life's greatest multipliers. I developed a work ethic that didn't need supervision. Let me give you a principle that will serve you for the rest of your life. The best kind of discipline is self-discipline. You see, the turning point in my life didn't come when someone pushed me. It came when I started pushing myself. I stopped working only when someone was watching. I stopped doing just enough to get by. I stopped waiting for the deadline to get serious. And I started showing up differently. I made a decision I would build a work ethic that didn't need supervision. No boss, no audience, no applause. Just me, my standards, and the future I was building. Because here's the truth. If you need someone to remind you to show up, if you need someone to push you to stay consistent, if you need motivation from the outside, then your results will always be temporary. But when you develop that inner standard, that personal commitment, that quiet fire that says, I work this way because that's who I am, that's when everything starts to change. Let me say this clearly. How you work when no one is watching reveals how far you'll go when everyone is. Success doesn't just ask what you do, it asks how you do it. I started treating every project, big or small, with care. I put excellence into the details. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. And you know what happened? Opportunities showed up. People took notice. Doors opened. But even if they hadn't, I still would have done the work. Because I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it to become the kind of person I could be proud of. Here's something I want you to remember. Effort is never wasted. Even if no one sees it, you do. And what you build in the dark will one day shine in the light. So how do you develop that kind of work ethic? You stop relying on feeling. You start relying on standards. You build a system. You track your progress. You set goals that stretch you. And you get honest about your habits. No more hiding. No more excuses. No more waiting for perfect conditions. Because perfect doesn't exist. But progress, that's available every single day. If you show up for it. So here's your challenge. Pick one task today. Do it with excellence. Even if no one will ever know. Be early. Be focused. Be proud of your work. And then do it again tomorrow. And again the next day. Until self-discipline becomes your signature. Because in the end, success doesn't belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most consistent, the most committed, the most responsible. Be the person who doesn't need supervision. Be the one who brings excellence. Every time. Every place. No matter what. And I promise you, you'll never need to chase success. Because it will start chasing you. Let's keep going. The next habit is about patience, power, and one of life's greatest multipliers. I learned to delay pleasure to multiply reward. There's a principle I learned early on in my journey, and it changed everything. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. That single truth taught me the power of delaying pleasure. Not denying it, but delaying it. Trading what I wanted now for something far more valuable later. You see, most people want success, but they want it without sacrifice. They want the reward, but not the wait. The results, but not the routine. I used to be that way. Always reaching for what was easy. A little entertainment here. A little comfort there. One more distraction. One more excuse. And one day I looked around. And I realized I was standing still while life was moving forward without me. That's when I learned a new mindset. A simple shift with massive impact. Not now means more later. Every time I resisted the impulse to quit early. Every time I skipped the party to focus on the plan. Every time I put off a small pleasure in exchange for a long-term gain, I was multiplying my reward. Because here's the truth. Success doesn't go to the most gifted. It goes to the most disciplined. The people who can wait. The people who can sacrifice now, knowing it will pay off later. And that's not easy. Delaying pleasure takes strength. It takes vision. It takes the ability to see beyond today. But if you can develop that habit, that ability to pause now to prosper later, you unlock one of life's greatest multipliers, compound growth. That's what changed my life. While others were wasting hours, I was investing them. While they were spending money to impress, I was saving to build. While they were avoiding discomfort, I was getting stronger through it. And no, I didn't see the results right away. But I kept going. And eventually, what used to be small sacrifices turned into massive returns. Let me say it this way. Temporary discomfort is the seed of permanent success. You don't grow when everything is easy. You grow when you choose purpose over pleasure, discipline over dopamine, vision over validation. So here's your challenge. Today, when you're tempted to drift, don't. When you're tempted to quit, don't. When you're tempted to grab the quick fix or the easy route, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me build the future I want, or is it stealing it? And then choose the action that your future self will thank you for. Because here's what I know. When you learn to delay pleasure, you won't just enjoy life more later. You'll earn a life most people only dream about. A life built on discipline, on sacrifice, on purpose. And when that life comes, it's worth every early morning, every focused hour, every time you said not now in the name of something greater. Let's move forward. Because the next habit is about what you put in, not just into your mind, but into your circle. I practiced gratitude relentlessly. The habit that gave meaning to the journey and multiplied everything else. Let me tell you something that success alone can never give you. Peace. You can have money in the bank, goals on the wall, trophies on the shelf, and still feel empty on the inside. I know, because I've been there. But when I discovered the habit of gratitude, everything changed. Not my circumstances, my perspective. You see, I used to only feel thankful after things went right, after the win, after the reward, after the applause. But real gratitude, the kind that sustains you, the kind that lifts your spirit and anchors your soul, is practiced before the blessing, not just after it. It's waking up and saying, thank you, before the world gives you a reason. It's looking at what you already have and realizing how much you used to pray for it. I made a decision. I would become relentless in my gratitude. Not casual, not convenient, relentless. Every morning, I took time to list what I was thankful for. Health, breath, work, lessons, people, even the challenges, especially the challenges. Because over time, I learned this: what you appreciates. Gratitude turns what you have into more than enough. It multiplies joy. It deepens relationships. And it shifts your focus from what's missing to what's meaningful. Gratitude is not weakness. It's strength. It's a perspective that sees the full picture, even when things feel incomplete. And here's the irony. The more thankful I became, the more success seemed to show up. Not because I stopped striving, but because I started seeing clearly. I stopped complaining. I stopped comparing. And I started celebrating even the small wins. Because when you're grateful, you're grounded. And when you're grounded, you don't panic. You build. So how do you practice this habit? Start simple. Each morning or evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for. And don't just write them, feel them. Let your heart catch up to your words. Say it out loud if you need to. I'm grateful for this day. I'm thankful for another chance to grow. I appreciate the people walking with me on this journey. You don't need more to be grateful. You need to notice more. You need to remember how far you've come, how much you've overcome, and how much you still have to give. Because when you carry gratitude, even the hardest day won't break you, and the best days won't blind you. Gratitude keeps you humble when you're winning, and hopeful when you're waiting. So yes, work hard, plan well, pursue growth, chase your goals, but don't forget to pause, to breathe, to thank. Because no matter how far you've got to go, there's always something right in front of you, worth appreciating. Let's wrap it up. You've learned 10 habits that changed my life. And if you truly apply them, they can change yours too. But remember this, it's not what you learn, it's what you live. Choose one habit, start there, and begin. Because success doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. Let's go build the life you were made for. Success is not a secret, it's a system. Let me leave you with this final truth. Success is not a secret, it's a system. It's not hidden in some ancient book. It's not locked away in a vault. It's not reserved for the lucky or the chosen few. It's built, habit by habit, day by day, choice by choice. And you now have the blueprint. You've just heard 10 habits. 10 simple, powerful disciplines that changed my life. Not overnight, not magically, but systematically. I want you to understand this deeply. The people who succeed in life aren't the ones who have it the easiest. They're the ones who build the strongest system. A system of showing up early, of feeding the mind, of protecting your circle, of speaking life into yourself, of taking responsibility, of mastering time, of working with purpose, of choosing discipline over distraction, of growing deeper, not just wider, and of practicing relentless gratitude. That system, if you work it, will work for you. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter what went wrong in the past. Because success doesn't ask where you started. It asks where you're going. And more importantly, what are you willing to do daily to get there? So here's my final challenge to you. Don't just listen. Don't just take notes. Don't just nod your head and move on. Choose one habit. Start living it today. Then stack another, and another, and another, until your system becomes unshakable. Until success isn't something you hope for. It's something you've earned. Because success is not about the big moment. It's about the small ones, repeated with excellence and intention. No more waiting. No more wishing. It's time to build. You have what you need. You know what to do. So go out there and become the person who doesn't need motivation to move. Because you've built the system to win. Every single day.